Hello and welcome back. In this section, we're going to show you how to use the brush tool to cut objects out of their backgrounds. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to create a custom brush that's going to simulate hair, and then we're going to use that brush to actually cut a dog out of the background. So this can be used anytime you have basically an object with a soft edge, like hair, something like that, and you have a complicated background as well. So channels are really not going to work here because we don't have a great difference between light and dark. So we're basically going to create our own selection or outline of our subject using the brush tool. So here in Photoshop, let's go to chapter 2, section 5, the brush tool. Let's go ahead and open up this JPEG, and I'm going to hit F for full screen. So really cool image here, really just beautiful dog, and we want to basically be able to cut out the dog from the background. So you'll see we have all these little areas here that we need to cut out. Now, oftentimes it's the case, if this were a solid edged object, obviously we would just use the pen tool and cut it out, but that's not the case. We have quite a bit of variance here. And so it actually makes a little bit more sense to create our own custom brush that we're going to use. And basically we're going to make the brush look like hair, and then we're going to use that to cut out our subject. So let's go ahead and start off. It's easier than you would think. We're going to create a new layer. And I'm actually going to start off by using the brush tool. So let's go ahead and zoom in. Now I want to make my brush, we're going to make our brush, we can right click, make our brush hardness right about 50%. Something like that looks pretty good. And then you want to bring your size really nice and small. You want to make your brush size about the same size as a hair. Okay, let's just make it a little bit bigger here. And I'm just going to kind of paint a couple of these little hairs in here. Now, I also recommend going to Window and down to Brush Settings. There we go. And here in your shape dynamics, you can turn on your size jitter. Basically, you can turn on the controlled pen pressure if you're using a tablet, okay? So that'll be like the softer you press, it'll be smaller, and the harder you press, it'll be a little bit larger. Okay, let's make it a little larger so you can see. Okay, now if you don't have a pressure sensitive tablet, that's totally okay. You can actually just turn this on to fade, okay? So you can see it'll just kind of fade out there. Okay, and you can bring your minimum diameter down a little bit. There we go. And then you can increase your fade, this number. Let's just go to about 400, and you can see that'll just make it a little bit longer. Okay, so you can see, let's go to about 300 there. All right, so we can see you can do this. Let's just clear this layer. You could do this to create little hairs also. Okay, so you don't need a tablet to do this. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and use our tablet here. Let's just go ahead. I'm going to put this back to pen pressure here. There we go. And I'm just basically going to create a few hairs here. Basically, something like that. That's going to look pretty good. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. There we go. And something like that. So now basically I just made this on a new layer, and what I want to do, let's go ahead and close our brush settings for now. What I want to do is just turn this into a brush. So you can make any shape into a brush, really easy to do. You just need a white background, and then whatever's going to be your brush, you just want that to be black. Okay, so let's go ahead and create ourselves a white background. I'm going to create a solid color fill background. Okay, there we go. Now this color is kind of like gray. I just need it to be black. What I'm going to do is lock the transparency of that layer. Okay, you can see this little transparency lock. That's just going to only let me paint on non-transparent pixels. Okay, so now let's just fill that with black. I'm going to hit D for our default colors and Alt or Option Delete to fill. Okay, now you can see if I didn't have that transparency lock and I filled, it would just fill the whole thing. So that transparency lock, super important. You could fill it with white, black, any color. It'll just fill only non-transparent pixels. Okay, so now basically we have this black shape on a white background. It just looks like hair. So let's go ahead and select this. I'm going to hit Control or Command and turn this into a selection, this layer. And we're going to go to Edit and down to Define Brush Preset. All right, and we're going to call this Dog Hair 1. All right, there we go. So we define that as a brush preset, and you can see it actually automatically loads here in Photoshop. We have this Dog Hair 1. So I can right click and I can go to Dog Hair 1, and then there we go. We're just painting around with this shape. Super cool here. Now, if I want to bring this in, let's just go ahead and make this just a little bit smaller. you can see I'm just painting around with my brush tool here. But now I need to just adjust my settings a little bit more because I want this to actually kind of look like dog hair as I paint it. Right now it's just like too continuous. It doesn't look exactly right. So let's go ahead and show you guys how to change your settings to make this actually work for you. So let's go ahead and make this layer invisible for now. We'll make the white layer invisible also. And let's go ahead and start working basically to try to create some dog hair here. All right, now we're gonna create a new layer. And I'm just going to choose red as my foreground color, just so I can see what I'm doing here. All right, so you can see I can start to paint around here, and it's looking pretty good. Now, we're going to go to Window and down to our brush settings. All right, and I'm going to click on Shape Dynamics, and let's turn our size jitter up. That's going to make some of these are just going to be a little larger, and some of these are going to be smaller. Okay, that looks good. Now, let's go ahead and turn our angle jitter up as well, and that's just going to kind of rotate these around. All right, let's just put this on a white background so again we can see what we're doing. So you can see we have a little bit of an angle jitter there. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's put our size jitter up a little bit. Our minimum diameter will just turn up a little bit as well. All right. And I'm just kind of thinking about the edge. You know, what's the edge of my dog hair gonna look like? All right, that looks pretty good. Now I can also turn on scattering. Just a tiny bit of scattering. It's just gonna make it a little bit more random. Again, my goal here is to make this random. All right, and they're spaced a little bit far apart. I just want to bring them a little closer, so I'm going to bring my spacing down just a little bit. There we go. And now the cool thing here is, let's just go ahead and get rid of everything on that layer. They're all kind of facing the same direction, but I can actually change the angle here, real easy to do, just by rotating this around. So you can see I've got different angles here. Okay, now there is another option here, and that's in my shape dynamics. My angle jitter, I can turn my control onto direction, okay? And then this will actually allow me, let's just delete all that. This will actually allow me to paint in the direction that I'm traveling, which is also pretty cool. So we can use all these options to kind of make things look good. We can see that kind of looks like a little hairball now, right? Pretty fun. So all these things we can do to kind of create our little hairbrush. Now I'm going to put this back to off for right now, and we're going to use our control just here in our brush tip shape. So this is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and save this as a brush preset. The first time we saved, it was just the shape of the hair. Now what we're going to do is we're going to save it, and it's going to have all these settings built into it too. So let's go here to our little menu, and I'm going to go to New Brush Preset. And I'm just going to call this Dog Hair Final 1. There we go. All right, and that looks really good. So it's going to include our settings, capture the brush size, and hit OK. Perfect. And we're going to go ahead and include this in your download as well. Okay, so if you guys want to download it, it's just going to be in this folder. So I'll show you how to do that. Actually, we'll go ahead and I'll go to Edit, down to our preset, and to Preset Manager. I'm going to go to Brushes, and then I'm going to go ahead and click here on this this brush. I'm going to click on Save Set here. Okay, and then we're just going to put this right here. So we're going to say dog hair. Perfect. So if you just want to load this brush in, if you don't want to make it yourself, super easy. Just go. You can do it in a couple ways. Just go to Edit, down to Presets and Preset Manager, and then just make sure you click. Just make sure you select brushes, okay? And then click on load, and then just go to doghair.abr and hit open, and there you go. You've got your dog hair brush. Cool. So you could put a bunch in there if you want, but in this case, we'll just have this one. All right. Well, that's looking pretty good. So now we have this dog hair brush ready to go. So let's go ahead and put our color fill layer behind it. I just need to double click on my background to make it a regular layer. And what we're going to do is use this brush to basically define the edge of our dog. So let's go ahead and click on our layer mask. And then basically what I want to do is just, I'm going to paint with black on our layer mask, just right outside of here. There we go. And I'm going to go to Window and down to Brush Settings. And we're just going to keep this open so I can kind of change directions as we go along. All right, and I'm doing this pretty rough to start with here. There we go. Now it's just a regular brush, so you can just make it larger or smaller by using the open and close brackets on your computer. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Let's just make it a little bit larger here. Let's bring it up in this direction. So my recommendation, if you guys are going to be doing something like this, is you want to make your brush that's like about, I would recommend making it per image. Like I made this brush based on the type of hair that this dog has. Okay, so basically it's going to look good with this. But if someone has like curly hair, then you would just want to use like curly. There we go. You would want to use like little curly swirls and stuff like that. There we go. So you can see I'm painting away the background here and just kind of changing the shape and the angle of my brush. Sorry, not the shape, the size and the angle of my brush. There we go. So just kind of painting this in here. Let's go ahead and change this a little bit more. And you can kind of get artistic with this, and you can spend more or less time on it. Totally up to you as far as how accurate you want this to be. But the whole goal here is, rather than trying to like make a perfect selection out of the existing dog hair, what I'm doing instead is just redefining the edge. Okay, I'm saying, hey, this is the edge, and I'm using this custom brush to do so. All right, now, as of now, what I'm doing is I'm painting, there we go. I'm painting from the outside in, so I'm removing the background with this, but we can also go the other way as well. So let's go ahead and finish this up. You can see it really doesn't take that long. There we go. And again, some of the hair is going to be larger and some of the hair is going to be smaller. So you just want to make your brush size larger and smaller to kind of accommodate that. That's kind of the key. Here we go. A little bit larger brush to kind of accommodate the larger hair there. Change in some angles. All right, let's get back to the top of the head. All right. And there we go. We're looking pretty good. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option now and click on my layer mask, and we can see what our layer mask looks like. Let's just go ahead and clean it up a little bit. Make sure that, here we go. Make sure that all this is black around this area. Again, we're just making this invisible here. Okay, and that looks really good. So now we can see, let's hold Alt or Option. We can see the edge of our dogs. It's starting to look pretty good. It's a nice and fuzzy edge, which is exactly what we want, right? And now we can kind of take it a step further. So let's go ahead. I'm going to just duplicate our solid color fill layer. Let's just make it like a, there we go, like a nice red color. So we can kind of see, okay, how is this going to look on, on different color backgrounds? Because obviously we're probably going to, you can see this like little haloing thing that's happening here. We want to be sure to account for that, right? All right. There we go. And you can see just by using this brush, it's just going to make the edge look more realistic. All right. Perfect. Cool, so just making the brush larger and smaller to kind of accommodate for these sort of changes. And again, you can do this on people's hair. The applications are so wide for this technique. Great. So we've done a pretty good job basically removing the background. And now what we want to do, so we've like brought that in. Now what we want to do is paint some hair back out to help it look a little bit more realistic. So with that, we're just going to create a new layer. So let's create a new layer here. There we go. And with this new layer, now we're going to use our brush tool, and we're just going to sample different colors from around our animal, or dog, or could be human hair, whatever you have. Okay. And now you're going to see, basically, I'm just going to paint this in, from the inside. We're just going to paint this on out. There we go. And we want to get some, some randomness and some variation in there. All right, cool. And if you don't like something that you've done, just hit E for the eraser tool, and we can just erase away. I'm going to choose a kind of a hard edge brush there. There you go. Let's go a little bit softer with that. All right, and then B for the brush tool, and we're just going to paint it back in. All right, don't forget, you can use a larger brush to create some more of these larger hairs, and a smaller brush to create some smaller hairs. And I'm just kind of focused on the edge right now. There we go. Just kind of focusing on the edge. And I can always erase, okay? So I'm going to choose my white color now. There we go. Let's just choose our black color again. All right, so here you can see it kind of covers up a little bit of that. So I'm going to hit E for the eraser tool. And we're just going to erase it away and get back, all that original nice detail there. All right. In this case, we're just going to choose, there we go, a little bit of white to go in over just right there. And then I'm going to choose a little bit of black just to go back over it again. Let's just do that again. So white, and then a little bit of black to go back over it again. All right. Now let's just go up in this direction, and we're just going to paint it back in again there. So what I'm doing here is just painting in hair, right? And I'm pretty much guaranteed that this is going to look natural no matter what background I put it on, because it's there we go. It's literally just that color up there, which is really, really cool. All right. And moving right along, we'll go ahead and get the ears. Now the cool thing is you can actually use these custom brushes with like your clone stamp tool and your eraser tool as well. So let's go to a new brush preset, and I'll just call this dog hair, and we'll just type in clone. You want to click on include tool settings. You want to go ahead and turn that off. Okay. And then that way, let's say you're on the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to hit S for the clone stamp tool, right click, and I'm going to go down to dog hair clone. Okay. And then I can actually literally just clone stamp. So I can hold Alt or Option. I can clone stamp from the inside just out there, and then check that out. It's just actually like taking that color, and you don't want to do that everywhere, right? Like here, it's not really working out for me that well. Here, I would just want to use the regular old brush tool and do that over there. Okay, make it a little bit larger, sample that black color, and build in some variance. And I'm only worried about one edge because I can just hit E for the eraser tool, and then I can just erase it back out from the other side, right? All right, let's go back to our brush tool here. It's a little bit much. And the whole thing is like variance. You want this to be, you want it to look pretty varied from one area to another. You don't want it to just look like the same exact. So I'm kind of, as I paint in, I'm just kind of like moving my brush around and changing my brush size, moving it in and out, and just kind of like trying to get all the little bits of variance that I can. And that's just going to help it look more realistic. Cool. And we're almost done, actually. Let's just make our brush a little bit larger. Rotate it around a little bit. A little bit larger. There we go. Kind of put some of these we go. And again, you just want to hit E for the eraser tool. You can mask this out if you want. You can use a layer mask. That's totally okay. And let's just do the same thing like right over here too. Just a little bit larger brush. It's just going to make larger hair. There we go. And we'll just erase that out right here. So you can see this layer basically just adds the poof, you know, adds the other hair onto the edge. All right. So the great thing now is that literally I can just put this on any background and it's going to look great. So for instance, let's just change our background color. We put a solid color background in there so we can see. Here's I change my background around. It looks absolutely perfect. Okay. Now let's go ahead and group the dog. So the dog itself has a layer mask that has a really nice edge, and see all that? That's just really, really great detail. Way more fine detail than you would ever be able to get with a layer mask. Okay, so there we go. Let's go ahead and group these together. Perfect. And here we have our dog, and we can literally put this on a transparent background, white background, or any other color that we want. Now I'm just going to create a couple of whiskers, and then we're going to be done. So for our whiskers here, let's just zoom in, and we're going to create a new layer in here. There we go. Just new layer inside that group. And I'm just going to choose just a regular old brush. Let's make it about 50% hardness, nice and small. And then, you know, basically I'm just trying to choose a smaller brush. And perfect. So that's just going to be a layer. And I'm going to use my move tool to kind of like move that into place and match it up with the existing whisker. Okay, then just erase this. E for the eraser tool. See, you can see nice and easy. A new layer, we'll just do another one. Pop. Move tool to kind of move that up there. Okay, E for the eraser to kind of blend it together. And then we'll just do some white ones. So paint, pop, white one, kind of move that up there. New layer. I'm creating new layers each time so I can kind of move them into place and get them to kind of align with the existing. There we go. That one actually just worked pretty well. All right, perfect. And there we have it. So those layers, let's go ahead and delete these two layers. We don't need them. Make our thumbnails just a little bit smaller. So these layers are all whiskers, right? And now I don't need them to be separate because they're in the right place. So I'm going to shift click on all those, hit Control or Command E to merge them all together. So I got my little whiskers here, okay? And then I'm just going to come in here with my blur tool. There we go. And we'll just do a little bit of a blur on the whiskers, especially towards the end. So let's just zoom in. Here's the before and the after, a little bit of a blur on there. And while I'm at it, if you want to, you can go in here. You see all these other layers too. You can go in here and you can put the blur tool on those too. See, here's the before and the after. Pretty subtle there. But if you want to just, you know, if you make fur and you're like, nah, it looks pretty good, but it's a little bit too in focus, or maybe it's a little too sharp, just doesn't look exactly right or exactly real or whatever, just come in here with the blur tool, blur it away, and you are good to go. So turning that layer off and on, again, because we all did that with super non-destructive editing. You can change your background color at any point in time. There we go. That looks great. And I can always get back to my original just by holding Shift and clicking on my layer mask. So we can see there's the original. You can kind of compare your own work and do just a really fun job cutting anything with a soft edge out of its background. So the real key here is you want to make a brush that's similar. If it's hair, you want to make a brush that's similar to hair. If someone has curly hair, then just make a brush with a bunch of like little curly areas and then use that to redefine their edge. Okay, so basically take cues from the existing image, make the brush, we showed you how to do it, and then paint it in there, and you can see it's really the best way to get a beautiful, clean edge around your subject. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. We'll see you in chapter 3, where we got some great examples cutting our subjects out of their backgrounds, and we're going to show you how to put in new backgrounds and help them look realistic.